Ward back with I Object, and I have another great guest today. This is just a great day for my show because I have a person who you may never have heard of, but who has become one of my heroes because of what he's done in the past few months. His name is Jerri Connor. He's a resident of Dripping Springs, Texas, where he's active in local political issues. And like I say, he's my new hero because he saw public corruption happening in the Capitol in Austin, Texas, and he didn't just sit around waiting for somebody to do something about it. He actually filed a complaint and got it directly to the grand jury, bypassing the district attorney, and he got some very interesting results from that grand jury. And so we're going to talk about that. So, Jerri, welcome to I Object.
Well, Ms. Ward, thank you very much. I'm glad to be on the show.
Well, I'm happy to have you. And the first thing I want you to tell folks is what was the corruption that you saw that galvanized you into action to go to a Travis County grand jury?
Well, a lot of folks may have seen the video on YouTube and in some news reports of the House of Representatives in Austin, Texas State House of Representative members voting on the electronic vote machines of absent members, people that weren't in the building. And so Nancy Wilson with KView News did a report on that, and it wound up on the Internet, and someone sent it to me. My son sent it to me and said, Dad, this is vote fraud. What do you think of this? And I looked at it, and I knew something was wrong, but it wasn't actually vote fraud. It was impersonating. What they were doing was impersonating public servants other than themselves and altering a governmental record because the House Journal is a governmental record. So, after researching the Texas Penal Code, I found that, and the Code of Criminal Procedure, because everybody in the world was saying, hey, gosh, somebody should do something. It's wrong. And everybody was mad about it. There was...
Yeah, let me just describe, on the video, it showed these politicians running from desk to desk to vote other members' vote. And whether the other members actually would have voted that way, we have no way of knowing. But like Jerri says, they were impersonating the actual representative. So you got mad about it, and what's the first thing that you decided to do?
Well, I decided to, after researching the Penal Code and the Code of Criminal Procedure, I decided to go down to the Travis County Grand Jury room and just take a criminal complaint affidavit, have it notarized. I had it notarized, and took it to charging of the allegations that I made were that, impersonating public servant and altering a governmental record.
So did you go to the grand jury first, or did you try to go to the DA's office first?
Well, I went to the grand jury room, and the bailiff there told me, no, you cannot you can't even speak to a grand juror, and I showed her the statute that says that any credible person, according to Article 20.09 of the Code of Criminal Procedure, any credible individual can present information to a grand jury of an indictable act. And she, regardless of that, told me, no, you're not going to be able to do it. You got to go to the DA. So I went over to the DA's office, showed him the statute. The individual that I spoke with said, yeah, that's what it says, but I got to check with my supervisor. Goes in, next thing you know, 3 people come out, all saying, no, we're not going to allow you to do it. So I determined, well, rather than get in trouble here, I'll go ahead and just let them have a shot at it. So I turned over the information to the DA. I had a videotape of what had occurred and the criminal complaint affidavits. Turned it over to them, and they said, get back with us in a week. We'll let you know what we're going to do. It stretched out into 4 months, and then I wrote a letter to the head of the Public Integrity Unit down there, the gentleman, on January, what day did I write him? January 31st, to ask for first one in October. Yeah, 2008.
And just so everybody knows, this is the same Public Integrity Unit that got indictments against Tom DeLay.
Exactly.
So you went down there and you checked with them again, and they still hadn't done anything. Is that right?
Well, they wrote back. They hadn't done anything. They wrote back and said that on February 7th, they wrote back and said we're still investigating it, and we're not going to make any comments further regarding the matter until the issue's completed. That was on February 7th. So I figured 4 months was long enough for them to look at a 2-minute videotape and read a half a paragraph allegation. So I went to Judge Charles Baird in Travis County, wrote a letter to him. He called me back and said, look, it looks like you got a very valid point. So I went down to visit with him, and he agreed that if I would give him the criminal complaint affidavits, draw up new ones, hand them to him, he'd turn them over to the grand jury, because the law does state that it's the law. You have to. If it's a felony complaint affidavit, it has to be followed up on. There's no discretion, in other words.
So he took it to the grand jury.
He took it, went around the DA's office, and just gave it to a grand jury foreman and said, here, citizens come in, according to law, you guys have to look at it according to your oath and according to statute, which they did.
And what was the result? What result did the Travis County grand jury come out with?
Well, the grand jury invited testimony, interestingly enough, from the House Journal, the House clerk, and from a University of Texas law professor to come in and explain to them how the legislators were not subject to indictment due to the fact that the separations of powers protects them from the penal code that I charged them with. Now, that's like saying that, that's, and it be that as it may, I don't want to get off into that, but they did issue a report saying they need to stop it because the fact that the public feels that the legislators won't follow law or their own rules. Their House Rule 57 says they shall not do what they did.
So basically, they had a law professor, or did I understand you correctly? They had a law professor or someone come and tell them that the House representatives had immunity from breaking where they couldn't be prosecuted for breaking the law?
For violating that penal code because it would interfere with the rulemaking process. My complaint was not that they violated House Rule 57. My complaint is that they violated the penal code. So basically, when you stop and think about it, usually when someone goes in front of a grand jury, they don't have the benefit of an attorney going in to represent them. Matter of fact, it was one of the things that we are, as citizens, denied the right. Yet these folks had a UT law professor who, in other words, who appropriates funds for the University of Texas.
The government, the legislature.
Exactly. So the people named in the criminal complaint affidavits are the folks that are going to vote on appropriations for UT. So, there is a little bit of a conflict as I look at it in there that a UT law professor was invited in there, which, that's all fine. They've got the right to bring in anybody they want. But interestingly enough, the person that they didn't invite testimony from was the complainant, which was me.
The grand jury didn't invite that?
No, they didn't invite my testimony.
Do you have any idea why?
In my opinion, it may be that, they did have a letter from me and an affidavit, and so maybe they thought, there's no sense in bringing him in, but I would like to have at least had the opportunity to testify in it to point out my complaint was not that House Rule 57 was being broke. It was the fact that the penal code had been violated, and I don't believe that separation of powers would preclude indictment.
Well, and I agree with you, and we're coming up on a hard break, but I'd like you to stay over for the last segment because I want to talk about the importance of this law whereby citizens can go themselves to the grand jury. So stay over, Gary, and everyone, stay tuned for the last segment of I Object, Justice Examined, and we'll be right back. Gary, we're back, and I want to ask you a question. First of all, the purpose of that law that you're talking about was to allow the citizens to go direct, to bypass elitist politician cronies who might be protecting each other's hind's end, and bypass them and go directly to the grand jury to make your complaint. Is that your understanding of that law?
Yes, ma'am. That's my understanding, because if the DA was the only individual that could go to a grand jury to present a complaint, then the district attorney's office employees could get away with just about anything.
Well, I think that at one time in our history, the prosecutors were not even present. It was the grand jury who did all their investigation. And I know in your case, you're saying they brought this law. Didn't bring you, but they brought this law professor, which kind of who legally blew your case out of the water, except for the admonishment the grand jury made. Do you suspect that the prosecutor is the one who suggested that witness?
Well, I would think that most of the grand jurors may not have known the name of the House Journal clerk nor the name of this UT law professor just out of hand. It may have been that the prosecutors might have brought that to their attention, that these folks could be invited in to testify. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not going to say one way or the other. I just don't think that your normal, Joe Blow grand juror that gets called in is aware of, the names of UT law professors that specialize in separation of powers law.
Well, yeah, exactly. Do you think that this is an important right that citizens throughout the country who have similar laws in their state should be aware of and should use?
Yes, everybody should be investigating into it, because if we're ever going to take our country back, if we're ever going to be a government of the people, by the people, and for the people, that fourth branch of government, the grand jury, we need to take it back. It belongs to us, not the district attorney. If we're the people.
Well, I totally agree with you, and I want to congratulate you on what you did. I think it's interesting that the prosecutors here in Travis County are now acknowledging that citizens have the right to do that. It's really interesting that they still want to scream because they're afraid paranoid schizophrenics will bring complaints, but I think grand juries can handle that. So, Jerri, thanks for being on the show, and everybody will be back in 2 weeks for another show of I Object, Justice Examined.
This is Right Talk Radio.